Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Home Spun Yak. It's been a while. We've been a little bit inconsistent. Again, usually my fault. Uh, but we are back for another episode to discuss all things, well, literally all things.
Yeah, whatever you want to talk about, we're here to discuss and have strong opinions on,
Strong
or none at
opinions,
all,
or none
and
at all.
everything in between.
And we disappoint in that fashion.
That's true.
Yeah.
Can't
Uh,
have an opinion on everything, or can you?
ooh, wow. We need to
Big
discuss that
first question.
immediately. I wonder. I mean, I would imagine that there's always going to be some inherent, like anytime we talk about like people have bias, right? So I imagine that you have to have an opinion on things, even though you may not consciously think about it. I think that subconsciously you probably have some sort of opinion.
hmm An initial snap judgment or snap
That's
reaction.
right. Like when I see a white guy coming
You want to
towards
punch
me.
him in the head.
Yes, exactly. And I cross the street because I'm like, I need to
You're
get away
scared,
from this
yeah. Yeah.
businessman.
Yeah, a white collar crime will be inflicted upon you.
Oh my God. Sign on the dotted line.
my
No,
my
no.
data.
uh, anyway, but we do have something. I wanted to talk about something specific. Actually, a book that we've both been reading. I'm way behind. You're on like chapter 11, so you're way ahead of me.
Rule 11
Rule 11. Hopefully,
or
people.
22 actually, if you
Oh,
want to be
that's
technical.
that's true. Uh, so we're talking about Jordan
This is
Peterson.
Elmo's rules.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Wrong book.
Yeah, wrong book. We'll get to that one
Okay.
afterwards.
Jordan Peterson first.
Yeah, who, who has kind of a Muppety voice, so
Yeah,
it's pretty
Kermit.
fitting. Yeah. So he has this rule, and I don't remember exactly. I think it's like four or something. Notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. Okay.
hmm hmm
So I went through that one. It was a good rule. And his first book, 12 Rules for Life, was very much about responsibility. That was kind of like the big takeaway. Like, I mean, there were all kinds of obviously rules within that, but a lot of what he preaches or talks about is responsibility. So I wanted to ask you, because he keeps going back to this, do you think that a person can remain grounded as a human being? Can a person exist or feel like they have a purpose, or well, just exist? They don't even have to have a purpose if they don't have a sense of responsibility. Just generally a sense of responsibility, however you end up defining that.
I don't know, because you can look at responsibility as I need to be responsible for maintaining life for myself, as in I need to be responsible for just providing myself with the basic elements necessary to survive. And in order to do that, you have to take up some sort of action, whether it be to beg for food and get up every day and beg and hold a sign and ask for money to sustain your life, or if it means uh, I don't know, stealing or relying on others to provide you with food and water and shelter. um, I think if you want to survive and want to live, you have to have like these basic survival elements. And I guess you can stretch that to make it some sense of responsibility for yourself. Uh, if you're solely just trying to survive, I mean, if you're like a Bear Grylls type person and you just are thrust into the wilderness of Alaska with nothing but what you have, um, I don't know if like I don't know the line between responsibility and then necessity. I don't know
Hmm.
if those are blurred there.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
But I
Uh,
mean, assuming that you're just a normal person with like a job or you're just existing in our society, um, I don't know. I don't think a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people willingly take up more responsibility than they what they already are doing. People probably just are doing the bare well, are doing what they deem necessary to just maintain their job, maintain their weight, maintain their uh, social status, whatever it is. And that, I don't know, there's just not a lot of originality and there's not a lot of people, looking for new opportunities where they might not be, like that chapter says. I just don't think there's a ton of people who are actively looking for ways to not make their life more difficult, but make their life more meaningful through difficult responsibilities that will ultimately pay off in the long run in a positive way. Whereas a lot of people look at those things and say that's only going to weigh me down or be a burden in the present moment. But long term, they don't have the vision to realize that it will help them.
yeah,
So I don't know.
that's what he right. That's what he ends up discussing. Right, exactly what you said at the end there. The that a lot of people, most people shy away from responsibility, especially when it's hard. The harder the responsibility, the less people willing to take on that responsibility, especially if, to your point, if it's something that's not going to pay off for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that interesting, and I do find that to be true. That there's tends to be a vacuum, where there's greater amounts of responsibility that's needed, and or people just don't take up that calling for themselves. Like they see that something is could be fixed, but they don't want to take up and actually fix it. They don't, I guess that's even on the micro level. If you're talking about like working at a retail store,
Mm-hmm.
like you're just a person who works there, you're like the lowest level employee. But some people take this sense of responsibility to an extreme, which I mean, I suppose is good in certain regards, where they will go out of their way to make sure that they do their job perfectly, like as well as they possibly can. They
Mm-hmm.
take it really seriously. Then you have other people that just don't really care. But I think extending out from that, I do think that if people don't have a sense of I think purpose and responsibility are very close together. I think that if a person doesn't feel like they at least have a responsibility for something or someone or a group of people or whatever it might be, like a family, your kids, your wife, your husband, etc., that I do think that people kind of devolve into a lot. I think that their psychology becomes a lot less malleable, and it becomes it becomes much more fragile, in that if anything were to happen to them, psychologically speaking, financially speaking, whatever it might be, that they would spiral out of control quickly. And I think that's what actually Jordan Peterson, ultimately, that's the void that he filled, right? That so many young men felt like they didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a purpose in life. They didn't feel like they were being told you need to take responsibility. And in certain regards, maybe they were being told to take responsibility, but he was the first person to have kind of these kind of overall philosophies on how to do that, and that ultimately resonated with thousands and thousands of young men, and of course women as well. But I think it just tended towards more men being taken by this idea of responsibility, and I think that without responsibility, we feel empty as humans. I feel like that's almost part of our human condition. We have to feel like we have some purpose, that we have something that we're doing.
Hmm.
Otherwise, we don't feel like we're going anywhere. If we're not going anywhere, we very quickly devolve, like I said earlier.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I like about Jordan Peterson the most, and that's been such a revelation for so many people, like you mentioned, men in particular, is that he is basically big on, take up responsibility just overall that will positively impact your life. But, like chapter 4, take it up where it's been vacated in certain facets of your life as well that you see. And like he's big on, in that regard, just not being ashamed of whatever job you have, or and taking pride in whatever you're doing, because
Mm.
ultimately there's going to be people in those same positions who are feeling ashamed and are feeling like this job is beneath me, like I don't want to do this job that provides me no joy, and I feel like I can do much better than this. And that's a good mentality to have as well, because you want to obviously improve your status and your situation and do what you love to do. But when you're in a position like in the present moment, that's just what situation you have at hand. So you can either complain about it and continue to spiral downward and not get anything out of it, or you can change your outlook and just do the best job you can, and be a good representation for that particular position. And if you do that to the best of your ability, people will definitely notice, whether it's your managers, whether it's customers, whether it's people who are just passing by and notice you're working hard and you're providing extra service, whatever it is. Hard work will ultimately pay off in some way or form. And I think a lot of people who were like, oh, I didn't go to school, or I'm ashamed of my job, or whatever it is, he encouraged them that, you can still do what you want to do or be what you want to be, but you have to be fully engaged in everything you're doing. And you don't need to feel shame or pressure from outside forces. Like, this is your life and you can control it by being the best version of yourself at your job, no matter what it is. And like you said, that responsibility is like the meaning behind, a lot of people's lives. Like, we have responsibility, and that gives us meaning to life. But also, a thing that maybe I mentioned before that Sam Harris talks about is problems are, life would be meaningless without problems. And a lot of people look at problems, rightly so, as annoyances and as things that, can be depressing, and can be viewed as something that can hold you back and just be a massive inconvenience, no matter how minor or major. But his whole argument is that we wouldn't have anything to do if everything was just perfectly laid out before us, and that we knew what was going to happen. Or, unexpected problems can um, be annoying, but they also can teach you a lot about yourself and a lot about how to prevent this first problem from ever occurring again if you deal with it correctly. So it's just about how you deal with problems, and how you take up responsibility can have an impact on uh, really the trajectory of your life.
That point about Sam Harris, I think it kind of struck something in my own mind too. That yeah, we have to have problems. I think that's part of how we like to function, how humans are designed to function in a way. And I think a lot of this is really poignant in the fact that when we get bored, we feel like sick. We feel
Hmm.
like we have to get out of that state, and sometimes we actually create problems.
Yeah.
just to deal with that boredom. Looking at you, women. And
Hmm.
Mhm. And sometimes when things are just placid, that there's everything is calm. Like we can live in that for a while if you have a sense of purpose, and you can be really happy in that for a while. But I think that there's always going to be a timer that you're always going to be. Then, like if you do something continuously and it's just like easy peasy, it's just this routine that you're going through, you're not really actually problem solving, you're not doing any of that. Eventually you get to a point where you get bored and then you want to shake things up. You like everything was working perfectly fine, but you want
Yeah.
to shake things up. Like, I'm going to go skydiving. I'm going to, I need to do something, and
Hmm.
I think, and
Yeah.
that's on a gradation as well. Like if you have really introverted people, maybe they're a little bit less that way, but more
Mm.
extroverted people are like, I'm
Hmm.
going nuts if I don't have like some drama or something. It doesn't have to be with another person, just something that's going on. Like I need to plan my next trip. I need to go somewhere else. It's like that search for excitement, that search for problem solving of some sort. Yeah, I think that's a great point by him. It's
Yeah.
completely right.
Yeah. It sounds maybe a little bit counterintuitive that we need problems to have a meaning or to live as humans functioning. But when you think about it, I mean, it's definitely true. I mean, a lot of, people's day at work, whatever they do is spent trying to, you know, solve problems that can help them, improve in that moment and in the long run. And then, like you said, when you're bored, I think a lot of people just they don't know what to do with themselves when they find that they have nothing to do for a particular amount of time and they feel like they have to fill it with something that is stimulating, and oftentimes that is something that is not going to be a responsible activity, and it's
Sex and
trying to,
drugs and
yes, and
anti-Christian messaging,
rock and roll,
rock and roll.
swearing, and yeah, I mean, it's just like it's being able to just live with the voices in your head and try to channel any sort of negative energy into positive energy. And it's just, I don't know, it's like I don't have anything to do, but if I want to fill this emptiness with something positive and I have a lot of energy, like why don't you just work out? Or, that's like the David Goggins sort of approach to boredom or nothing on your hands. It's like, well, we need to make something difficult. So like we're completely spent by the time that it's over, and we don't need to fill this time with anything negative, because I mean that's just what people gravitate towards when they don't have responsibility, and then when they don't have problems, it's just like it's not good generally.
No, no, it's not.
Idle hands are the devil's playthings,
Wow.
saith the Lord.
Saith the Lord. Yeah, so I find the general idea of responsibility really interesting, and the Sam Harris thing about
Yeah.
problems. I think that's really interesting too. It's funny that they end up like discussing back and forth about all that kind of stuff. But yeah, two obviously incredibly sharp minds. I still stand by the fact that Jordan Peterson is a terrible teacher. Um, it's he's
He
he's
just gets up in class and just starts talking about a story or something. They're like,
he's yeah he's literally like the worst teacher I've ever seen. Um, which again, I mean I don't know if I mentioned it, it just like hit me one day like relatively recently. I was like, man, this guy's so bad at teaching. Like he's brilliant, fantastic, artistic, creative in the way that he's
yeah,
able to use words, and he creates these great stories and whatnot. But sometimes he just gets high on his own stuff and he doesn't end up
Yeah.
like actually
Yeah.
conveying the message clearly.
Just goes
And
down a rabbit hole of
exactly, yeah. And I mean, you've
stuff, and
seen
it's
his
like,
lectures, right? It's
yeah,
yeah. I mean, the students, what are they supposed to do with that? Like, he just goes off for
I
15
know.
minutes about Goliath and David and just like all kinds of stuff, and you're just like,
Like, this is a psychology class.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. What are you
is this
supposed to
going to
take
be on
notes
the
on that?
test?
Yeah,
Or like, yeah, or do we have homework?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. So
so
reading
now he's
is,
probably doing what is best for him.
yeah, yeah. I think so too. So writing in his books is, it's great in terms of creativity and uh, an exploration of a breadth of knowledge, and the points overall are really interesting and great. But in terms of you wanting a clear answer, you will get none of that from his writing.
No,
Like you,
no.
like literally the headings of the chapters are, I mean, they're somewhat clear. If he had just like a paragraph, he could probably write everything that he wants to say, like all of his points.
Hmm.
He could probably say it in a few
12
pages.
paragraphs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But he doesn't. I mean, he goes off like all these different tangents, and then he rounds it back to the original point, and I have lost complete track of what that
I know.
original point was, and that's
Different
in that way he
stories,
is
different
terrible. Yep.
examples.
Tons of examples, tons of
Yeah.
examples. And
It's
some
just
of them
so
are
hard.
loosely tracking with it too. I just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. He definitely doesn't care about being super organized and like
No.
step one goes to step two, or stuff like that. So
No.
the books they can definitely be challenging to anybody who's trying to read them for the first time, but I don't know. I think they definitely can offer a lot of good insight as
I agree.
well to
Yeah.
people who, yeah, to just everybody. Really, there's a rule in there for everybody, no matter how successful or unsuccessful you are in any aspect of life.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, there's a there's another book that audiobook that I'm going to be it hasn't released yet. The book is out actually, but and I haven't gone through it because it actually hasn't released yet. It releases May 25th. So in like 14, 15 days. It's called Marry Him: The Case for Settling for Mr. Good Enough by Lori Gottlieb. I'm actually pretty excited about this book. I saw one interview about it, and I thought, this is an interesting concept. Should we, as people in general, when trying to find a partner, should we be more accommodating to the idea of settling? What do you think? Do you think that people's ideas of what they want out of a significant other are too lofty, first off? And if so,
Hmm.
do you think that people should be okay with the idea of settling? Like, you're not going to get everything on your proverbial
Right.
wish list.
Right. Yeah, I think people definitely and have a grand idea of what their desirable partner should be, and a lot of those expectations can be realistic, and are possible to find in other people, but um, I don't know. I think people definitely, I think for the most part, are uh, they have too high standards, too high of a goal, too unrealistic of a goal, that they're going to find someone who's going to check every single box on that list of like the perfect person. Um, Obviously, you want to have chemistry with the person, trust. You want to have love and compassion and all these other things that are mutually congruent with one another. Um, so in that regard, I don't know if I would call it like settling. I don't know. It's like a middle ground to me. Like I don't want to use the word like you everybody like should just settle if they are a certain age or if they're this or that.
Mm-hmm.
But to think that life is going to be like a Disney movie where you find a princess or a prince or whatever it is, and then it's just going to be that way when you meet and things are going great, like for the rest of your life, because people are going to change, and then hopefully you can grow with that person, um, and just roll with. I don't know, because Jordan Peterson talks about that a lot as well.
What?
In this book, and in recent podcast interviews I've seen, is like he doesn't say it's like settling, but he says,
She's good enough.
yeah. He's just saying that you basically like I don't know. There's just he's saying like there's people that are better for you than other people, certainly.
Yeah.
But
Right.
to think that you're going to find the perfect match for you, um, when you could have been born in India, you could have been born in China. I mean, it's the same with like religion. Like, this is right because it's just right, or is it right because you were born in North Carolina and you were
Mm-hmm.
not born in uh, Mumbai or somewhere like this, um, where you would have believed in some sort of different religion, based on your geographical location. But basically, what he's saying is, if you have the core values, the core things in common, and you both are on this, you know, this path together, you're eventually going to find out more about one another as you grow together, and you can actually be closer if you're honest and open, and you're adopting this responsibility together. As long as you have a good base, you can together build something better in the future together if you're on the right wavelengths mentally and physically. And he just encourages people to find new ways to keep mental and physical sparks alive as you go. So I don't think he calls it like settling, but I feel like it's somewhere in between, because you can trick yourself in your mind to say, I've found a good guy or I've found a good girl and things are going well, but what if I found this with who had this, or
Yep.
like, am I limiting myself? Like, you can get caught up in that very easily as well. Some cases you might be right to dream bigger, or to think that you're destined for someone better, or that person's destined for someone better than you even. But yeah, that's when you get caught up in like a world that is not even real, I feel like. And I feel like a lot of people, and I've done it in the past, where I've just been like, oh, like you know, what am I doing? Like, I'm limiting myself. I don't know if I can see myself with this person, or like be with
Mm-hmm.
one person forever. And like, what if this happened? But it's all what ifs. It's like, and we want to do that for every aspect of our lives, not just relationships. And sometimes you just have to, instead of constantly wondering about will things work out? Is this the right person? Blah, blah, blah. You have to, at a certain point, lock in and actually try, like actually give it a good try and take on that responsibility as well. So I can see a sort of a middle ground. Like I don't think that you should, settle just because like you found somebody, but I also don't think that, these lofty goals that are oftentimes unattainable and delusions of grandeur in your head are healthy either. So I don't know. That's my cop out of an answer.
I don't consider that a cop out. It's it's
Okay.
a it's a interesting take. I mean, yeah, I guess I'd agree with that. Sure. I mean, no matter what, I definitely agree that people need to put effort into their relationships to a point where they feel like they've given it a real shot. They've given it a real insertion
Hmm.
of life, as
Yeah.
opposed to how a lot of people handle relationships, pretty frivolously. On the flip side, I do think that, unlike Jordan Peterson, I do think that people should date a lot more. Um, especially in their 20s, they need to date.
Hmm.
I There's a book that I've read that says that people shouldn't be in relationships. Men specifically. This book was related towards men, but men shouldn't be in any serious relationship in their 20s. So they should just date and just see what's out there, And I mean, I don't know if I necessarily agree that it has to be this specific, like, oh, you have to
Yeah.
date. Like, if you find somebody great, just don't be in a relationship with them. Maybe I don't feel that strongly, but um, I think getting a good sense of what's really out there, and I think being a little more conscientious about, like, what do you bring to the table, and also understanding what do people actually value. That's another thing that I've thought quite a bit about of late. I think that the two biological sexes, I'll just put it that way, um, they it seems like they have slightly different asks when it comes to like societal norms, like talking about like finances or talking. I mean, some things are really compatible. Like you want somebody who's a great partner that you can trust. I mean, some of the things that you mentioned, right, that you have compassion for, that all that stuff.
Hmm.
Like that's of course going to be across the board. But I do think that there are certain things that, at least from my dating experience, I've seen some trends. I'm not saying that everybody is like this. Of course, you're always going to have exceptions, but I've seen some trends towards certain things that are specific to women. And then, of course, when I talk to my guy friends or just guys in general, they tell me about the things that they care about. And the lists are very, very different in certain respects. And I think some level of compromise on that is necessary. But I think also understanding that there are certain things that you can't give them up. Like you feel really strongly about them. Like if you see someone or you hang out with someone, you date someone, not in a relationship yet, you're just dating, and you find something really attractive about them, really enchanting about that person, I think that's something that people need to pay attention to and maybe put that on the list of things that like you absolutely have to have. Um, but on the other hand, like there are really small things that people really focus in on too. You know, does he have a nice enough car? Like that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
It's just like not. I mean, stuff that does not matter at all. And it's almost like if that is something that actually matters to you, you're going to be a terrible partner. Like it's because
Yeah.
suddenly things are very
Materialistic.
yeah, materialistic. But I mean, even when you're talking about personality traits, like he chews with his mouth open or something like that. Like, I mean, of course,
Hmm.
depending if it's like a fucking like
Yeah.
garbage
T Rex.
disposal, Yeah, exactly. Like a T-Rex. I mean, I get how that could be too much to, like, it would just be unattractive. Like, you would be physically repulsed by that. But if it's just like an annoyance or whatever, you know, it's like there are just certain things that people focus in on. Okay. I think one that's kind of in the gray area for me is height, right? For women, right? So many women focus so much on height. Like, it is by far the number one thing that women care about. Uh, even the women that I've spoken to that have said, I don't care that much about height. But then I probe a little further and they say, okay, well, he has to be at least my height. Like, it's like, okay, so he doesn't need to be a giant, great, but you still care, right? So
Hmm.
like that kind of thing, does it really matter? I don't know. I mean, there must be a reason why height matters so much, like being like
You think
5'10",
it's
5'11", 6 feet
in
tall.
some way a biological
I think
wiring
I think
in
s-
women
I think I think it is, but
to a
obviously
certain degree?
obviously I can't be certain. But and some women have said that, like they feel that that's the reason. Like they're just drawn to a guy who's like six
Hmm.
feet tall or taller, or like you know, whatever, like within that
Right,
range and taller.
right.
And to
Preferably
me,
6 feet.
yeah, preferably 6 feet. That's why all the guys that are like 5'9.5" are like, I'm 6 feet tall.
Wear basketball shoes everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Or they always wear boots with
Yeah,
really
yeah,
large
yeah. The
heels.
big heel.
We know your secrets, and don't
Yeah.
make women know your secrets too. By the way, if you're
Oh
one of
yeah.
those guys, but so while on one hand I'm thinking, okay, height from my perspective is like, who gives a shit, right? Like, are we really going to discard someone who may be fantastic in all these different ways, but he's 5'8"? But on the other hand,
Hmm.
like maybe if it is something that's biological, that's like you're just drawn to somebody who's taller or bigger, you know, whatever it might be, then that's something that maybe we can't just disregard and try to socialize our way out of it and just be like, oh, settle, you know, because then every single time that you see your partner next to someone else, that's not a socialization in your head. You're maybe if it is biological, that's a big deal. Even though
Hmm.
when I look at that situation, I'm like, that's so ridiculous. But to that woman, it may be a really
Right.
big deal, but she doesn't actually realize it, or maybe she does realize it and she's trying to get over that and just say, oh, this is so stupid. Like I like this guy so much, you know, but if it really bothers you, then maybe that's something that maybe is seems like it's not that important, but it really is important, and you need to put that on a list
Hmm.
for something that you can't settle on. But I do think that on the small stuff, and even some flexibility in personality, right? Like understanding, you know, one person may be more patient than another person, like stuff like that. Like you can't expect to have like a carbon copy of your list just appear in front of you. So just understanding the differences and being compassionate, kind of to use your word, to be compassionate
Hmm.
for those differences and understand that there are going to be differences. So I do think that people need to lower their expectations some. I think that people need to take a good hard look at themselves and understand what do I bring to the table? What does the opposite sex actually find attractive?
Hmm.
Let me interject here. Men care a lot about looks. Like that's I mean, I feel pretty comfortable in saying that's a biological thing. I
Yeah.
mean, I understand that things have changed, like, you know, socialization has changed, like what garb and stuff like that is attractive on women and stuff. But
Hmm.
overall, men are attracted to a certain type of woman, like being healthy, being like fit and whatnot. Like that's like the peak level. And of course, there's different iterations. And again, I understand there's variation between men, but the idea being like that's something that's super important. So if you're not a fitness model, or you don't care about fitness, you don't work out, you don't try to take care of yourself or anything like that, but you have this expectation that you want to date a guy that makes six figures, that's over 6 feet tall, that's like got all these different things, that's not realistic. So again, like also internalizing, what do I bring to the table? Another thing that I think pretty universally for men is, and this is going to be a delicate topic, but uh, don't don't like nag the guy to death. Like there's a point, and maybe this particular point is just me, but you get to a point where you think to yourself, I would rather be alone. And I think if a guy gets to that point, that's pretty bad. Uh, because that's not a great recipe for future continuation of that relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different areas here,
Variables.
so many different things that you have to consider. And because I know the rebuttal, like I've spoken to women about that too, like the whole nagging thing. Like some guys are just doofuses, like they don't do basic stuff, like they just throw their laundry everywhere. Like, I get that aspect as
Yeah.
well. So it's like, of course there's two sides to the story, but the overall point is that you have to figure out what you bring to the table. Are you truly the best version of yourself to actually ask, to be able to ask for somebody who is the best version of themselves and they fit all these criteria? And the odds are, like, no one's perfect. The whole idea of the human
Yeah.
condition is that we are not perfect. So there's going to have to be some wiggle room. So you are going to have to quote unquote settle at some point in for certain things.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest problem in our society now is the disconnect between what is physically and biologically attractive for both men and women, and then what society is telling men and women what should be attractive, right? So you've got, certain media outlets or personalities that have a lot of influence over, people coming into their sexuality as teenagers, over them saying, uh, you know, masculinity is toxic and you should not, be overtly masculine in these departments because it is harmful and it's violent and it's blah, blah, blah. But then you have the conflict that being masculine is actually attractive to women. So that is a huge conflict in today's society for people, because it's just like you have these you have these guys that will show up at the protests and all the feminist movements with, like, the pussy hats and all that stuff, and they're like, we're with you, and it's like, yeah, of course, like I'm with women who want to better their lives and who are not uh, being represented, whatever it is. Like, of course, like I'm on that side. Like,
Yeah, just equality.
but
We want
to
actual
yeah,
equality.
yeah, but to be like a subject, a peasant, a whipping boy for this, and to go over and above like what other than just verbalizing it. The beta male, I guess, mentality is what's preached in a lot of different facets of society today. And I'm just here to tell you that that's not, despite, getting a lot of girl friends and people who are on your team and, being the nice guy and the PC guy. Um, that's great, for making friends and being like cool on social media and being woke and all this shit. But if you're if you're that guy and you're struggling with actually forming a intimate and physical relationship with a woman, you might need to take a step back and look in the mirror. And doesn't mean you don't believe in these things that you're doing or how you're acting, but I don't know, like we're trying to now demasculate. I don't know what the word is, but I don't know. There's a fine line. I mean, obviously, you don't want to be toxic in any way, but being masculine to me is not being toxic. I mean, and that's what a lot of people I feel like are preaching.
Hmm.
today, and that's one that's not going to get you laid, and that's not going to get you a girlfriend. So I don't know. I mean, there are biological differences between men and women, and it's okay to express those, um, not in a violent way or not in a mean or menacing way or whatever it is, but it's like masculinity is what got us here. You know what I mean? And now that we're trying to maybe in some ways dismantle that, it's not going to be a recipe for long-term human sustainability.
I have so many thoughts on that stuff. Uh, it's I man, it's a heavy topic. The idea of toxic masculinity, and I'd be interested to get somebody's opinion. I feel like a lot of people, like I think we both understand what at least a definition of toxic masculinity, which is something that you already defined, like being needlessly violent or being like a bully or like things like that, that are, this version of masculinity that isn't
Yeah.
kind, it isn't compassionate and whatnot. But on the other hand, yeah, I mean, we can't lump all of masculinity. I mean, that's such an insulting thing. Like,
I
like
know.
literally, my existence is an affront to society or to these particular individuals. I think they're relatively rare. I don't think they're that common, even though, I've heard the toxic masculinity thing. Um,
Yeah.
well, you know what? A great example is Gillette commercial, right? You remember the
Mhm.
Gillette
Mhm.
commercial that everybody was up in arms about. A lot of the men's communities were like, "Oh, it's ridiculous. Why is it a big deal?" and all that. And uh, there were aspects of that commercial that made sense to me. I was like, okay, I can see how that's detrimental. I think there are certain areas where and I don't remember all of that commercial, but I remember there's like a bullying section, like a part where someone was being bullied. And I understand that's, that would be, let's say, toxic masculinity. Okay, great. On the other hand, there was a section. Oh, I remember, right? One guy, there were two guys standing on the street. A girl walks by, and one guy was about to go like hit on her, right? And then the other guy like stops him. Maybe that's a different commercial. I don't know. But the point is that the other guy stops him. He's like, "Hey, no, don't do that, bro." And in my head, I'm like, "What?"
Don't even try
Don't even try to talk to this woman. Like,
to talk to a woman.
you don't even
Don't even
know
try to talk to her.
exactly. Like, she's going about her day, dude. Don't bother her. It's like, again, I totally understand that a lot of guys would just be like, "Hey, baby,
Yeah, they can't
you
read the
want to
room
fuck?"
or yeah.
Like I get that, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, what if the guy was just like,
A
"Damn,
genuine
she's
attempt.
beautiful. Like, holy shit. Like, I just
Yeah.
feel compelled to like talk to this girl." So he like catches up to her and he's like, "Hey, this is really embarrassing," or, whatever it might be. And it's like this
Yeah.
genuine attempt to like find a partner, like whatever it might be. But the commercial doesn't get to that point. It just stops him from trying. And that is, it's like nothing bad happened. I mean, men hitting on
No,
women is
nothing
not a
bad happened.
bad thing. It's of course how
No.
it's done is of course matters quite a bit.
Right.
But if that were the case, we would get anywhere. I mean, it would be all based off
No,
of
the
dating
world's
apps.
over. The
Yeah,
world's over then. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And it removes that aspect of aggression in masculinity, a positive aggression,
Right.
in masculinity of,
I feel like women want to be sought after, want to be pursued, and obviously a healthy, respectful way. But it's like you're not going to get anywhere if you don't try, and that's what women instinctually, naturally, biologically uh, find to be in at least somewhat attractive is the fact that a guy is pursuing them because they find them attractive and they want to be uh, pursued in that way, not like in a objectifying their body way, but it's just like,
But
I
that is an
find you
aspect.
attractive in many. But that's an aspect, yeah, of course.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, yeah, like definitely, and there's another that's another confusing aspect for probably a lot of guys now. Like, if basically the evolution of how women dress, obviously not all women, but like if you go to like a gym or if you go just anywhere, like women, I'm not generalizing here, but I'm just saying women, the evolution of fashion has evolved to such a point in a certain age group of women
So
that
many.
outfits have become tighter to the body, more conforming to the curvature of the body, and less material. And I don't know why that is, but that is the way that it is. I mean, it's, that's what it is.
Yeah,
And if you do that, if you're dressing in that way, you are expecting to receive attention. Just you're likely anticipating that eyes will be on you. I would
probably.
imagine, or
Probably.
you would not be surprised if eyes were on you
Well,
based
yeah, we'll
on
put
a
it that
certain
way. For
outfit.
sure. For sure. We'll
You would
put it
not
that
be
way.
surprised. So in a way, you're not welcoming it necessarily. You're accepting that it's going to happen. Therefore, in some part of your mind, there must be a thing of like, I'm wearing this because I'm confident and I believe that people will look at me in a positive light, especially men. And men, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm digging myself a hole badly, and I'm sorry, but
We are not saying that women can't dress how they want and that they
yes,
can't dress without being harassed by men. Like men should not be
right.
harassing women
No
just
matter
based
what
off of what
people
they're look.
wear,
Right.
you should not be harassed.
Yeah, and you should be
But
you can wear whatever you want. But I get your point that like
but like
if
men, at the gym, if they have a good body, they're gonna rock like the thinnest tank
totally.
top to show
Yes.
off their arms and their
Right.
body. And it's like, I'm doing this because I'm confident in my body and I want people to look at me, and that might inspire a conversation, which might turn into a cup of coffee, and which might turn into a conversation, a movie, a holding of the hands, a life together. Who knows? But people are attracted to the physical traits of others. That's what draws the eye in, and then you get drawn further in by the personality, the person themselves,
Right.
hopefully,
Right.
to make it a more meaningful thing. So I have no idea what that accomplished at all, other than we cannot suppress biology, and I just worry that what we might be teaching kids at that very delicate age, I wonder what
It's not going to matter.
if I it's
It's
not
not.
gonna matter.
It's not gonna matter. I'll tell you right off the bat. Like you
Yeah.
said you answered that question like at the very beginning of the monologue that you just gave. You
Yeah,
said
circled back.
yeah you said that there's like a biological component to it, and women are attracted to like that masculine aspect of what makes men men, or whatever it's called. And again, I'm generalizing, but and maybe that's just who I attract, I don't know, but that has been my experience, and I have had this exact conversation with women, to just without even having this conversation, just asking them a question, hey, what are you attracted, like Are what about men in general do you find attractive? And almost always is like confidence, a certain level of aggression, like respectfulness, obviously, like but still these traits that are like a go-getter kind of
Yeah.
mentality, right?
Hmm.
And so we can socialize the fuck out of everything. It doesn't matter. The biology is ultimately women are going to want to sleep with the guy that they find attractive. A
Hmm.
prime example of this. Did we talk about this last podcast with the guy that ended up dressing up in dresses?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I mean that's a prime example, right? Like a woman was married to this guy. For any of the
Hmm.
thousands of new listeners, like for there's there's this woman that was not dating, married to this man, and she was encouraging him to start dressing in dresses and stuff. And so he went along for it because she thought, a
God
man
knows
can be
why.
a masculine. I don't know why. Who cares? Just he did
Yeah.
it. And then
Right.
she admitted later on that she became less attracted to him because he was not being like didn't fit that kind of masculine style. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't think they got divorced or anything like that, but like just she just admitted that she was less attracted to him. And it's just like this idea again that socialization, we can do a whole lot with socialization, and I think it's important to be more accepting and all that stuff. However, ultimately, when it comes down to the nitty gritty, the important stuff, do I want to fuck you? That
Hmm.
is going to get answered by biology. That is going to
Yeah.
get answered by like, damn, like look at her hips, or like look at his arms, or whatever, like his back, whatever it might
Or
be.
that guy's confident in himself.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. He's confident in himself, the way he walks, whatever it might be. Like it,
Hmm.
there's all kinds of different variations, but none of those are like, oh man, he's I don't like it's not a socialization thing. It's not about I mean, I don't even know what would be considered like a socialization thing. I don't know. But ultimately I firmly believe that it gets squared away through all the BS that we try to teach and all this stuff. Like, I'm not calling it all BS, but like some of it is like this whole discussion, what we've been having with toxic masculinity. Like, if I'm cool with like the discussion of being anti-toxic masculinity, we barely ever have a discussion of positive masculinity, which we
Yeah.
really should be having. And then, but if any school or anybody is teaching about masculinity as a whole is a negative trait, that's really, really problematic. And ultimately it's not going to matter because we're going to have a bunch of virgins. Because it's going to be a bunch of masculine guys that are going to be
Yep.
attracting all the girls. Not all.
Hmm.
Like, fuck, like, I don't know why I keep qualifying things. Like, it gets
Well,
so
no, I
annoying in my
mean,
head because like you have a real conversation with me, and I'm always going to be like as understanding as possible about the situation. I'll be
oh
like,
yeah,
oh, you don't
oh
feel that
yeah.
way?
There's
Okay, cool. Like you're one of those people that doesn't agree. Like that's fine. Like that's cool. I'm just again, maybe it's just because of the people that I've dated, or some of my friends that have dated other women as well. That seems to be a continuous theme of like masculinity being attractive. Like it has a
yeah.
certain quality about it, just like femininity has something really attractive about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different facets of attraction, but like it's the pull between, you know, nature, I guess, versus nurture in a way. Um,
It is.
but when you look at the animal kingdom, you look at any animal, and it's like the male animal has to be the brightest, the flashiest, like has to stand out
It's a
in a
great point.
physical
Yeah.
way, has to beat up the other bears or has to beat up, the other elk or whatever it is
Yeah.
and prove that you're the guy. And then women will want to mate with that particular animal. And, there has to be something valid in that for all species. And Yeah, it's just something innate, and I just feel like a lot of what's being said out there is like go against nature for a lot of things, go against your instincts and try to be more this or that or someone that you're ultimately not, but something that we want you to be. And I don't know, I just think there can be a good balance.
I think so too. Yeah. I think that socialization is necessary. We need to fix certain things about masculinity, the toxic parts. But your examples of like in the animal kingdom, yeah, I mean, you certainly have also examples of like the female spider is bigger than the male spider, like stuff like that. But like when you talk about mammals, it's
Yeah.
largely like the gorillas. They have like the alpha gorilla. You have the alpha wolf. You have the it's always the bigger male
Baboon.
baboon. The baboon. They I mean it's always this competition. It's all about competition, which honestly brings me to a whole nother point related to that competition. Something that I feel like men, this is going to be a hot button topic too. I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about this too. So breaking news. No, and this I don't know, man. I don't know. Sometimes I talk and
Say it.
I don't. I feel like somebody could hear it and then think like, oh, he's a misogynist. Um, all I can say is I encourage you to have a conversation with me. That's all I would ask. But with that, your example, right, of a lot of males have to constantly compete. I mean, it's a constant competition for like who's going to be the dominant one and whatnot in the animal kingdom and stuff. Imagine as that translates to humans on even like a genetic level or some other biological level, doesn't that then confer a biological advantage to men to be competitive? Which means that if we then translate that, if that were the case, and I don't know that for a fact, but if that were the case, that men have been socialized and have a biological programming to be competitive, to be constantly trying to be better versions of themselves. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as on average. Then we stick women in the workforce and we put that up against men that are obsessed. And Jordan Peterson even discusses this, right? Like, by and large, the most successful people are men, not because, just because they're so obsessed with like creating and building and they have this singular track mind. And while women, I don't know, maybe there's an actual biological difference there. I'm not saying that women can't be highly competitive. Of course they can. But even in like if you're talking about the absolute pinnacle levels, it would not surprise me if we take this biological basis of competition and we apply that to men, if that really truly ended up becoming something that we like the idea of being emasculated, right? When let's say a woman makes two times more than you do, for example, or whatever it might be. Like some guys are cool with it, like they're just completely cool with it. But like a lot of guys, they feel emasculated that by that. Is that a socialization though? I think an aspect of that could be, but I think another part of it could be that I mean, even if we trace this back to like genes or some sort of biological reasoning for that, that would mean that there's this like drive for men to be impressive, to show off, to kind of like the peacocking
Mm-hmm.
and the gorillas fighting against one another, and like and if you take that away, suddenly they don't feel like they're being men, they're not being masculine, and in a way they may actually not be masculine. Like maybe the literal identity of competitiveness is a masculine trait, not just by socialization, but by actual biological imperative. Boom! Finally got that idea out of my head. I was I was trying to figure out how I was going to say that to be like relatively delicate and still
Boom.
like leave the option of like I could easily be wrong.
No, I mean that's a great point, and it's something that I never equated with being, a biologically masculine trait. And I think that's, I mean, when you look back at early man, whatever it was, a primate descendant. I mean, you have to fight other tribes, other groups, other people within your tribe, um, to survive. And if you are if you're physically bigger and more athletic than than the woman or the female, whatever it is, I don't know. Your survival instincts will enable you to use those physical traits in order to overcome obstacles, uh, to succeed, to survive. Um, I'm just trying to think of.
I have an
I don't
example.
know. I mean, I
If
mean, I mean, throughout time. You look at, how many wars have happened, how many people have fought fellow man for
mhm.
thousands and thousands of years, still happening today. All all armies have been men, and I'm not saying that that's like a good thing or like good job men, like we
And
kill
it's
other
men's
men,
fault.
like
It's men's
yeah,
fault.
exactly. It's
I think we recognize
always the
that.
guy's fault. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
But it's just that something. It's like I gotta have more. I gotta take over something. I gotta build more. I gotta show that I'm the best. Like, oh, they have this. Like, let's take it. Let's do this. And it's the same with like information today. It's like war is not necessarily being fought physically on the battlefield. It's hacking different ideas, different technologies from different countries. Like they have this, like how dare they have it before us? Like let's hack, let's get their stuff. And it's all always driven by male leaders or whatever it is. Um, but I think competition obviously can be terrible and disastrous and unnecessary at times, but it's also incredibly valuable. Um, and it's why a lot of people have success.
a great
And
kind
that's
of
why the trophy idea that everybody gets a trophy is such a bad idea, in
oh,
my opinion.
completely agree. Yeah.
It's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But anyway.
There's a there's a great example of this. I'll actually give you two examples. One is more personal, and the other one is something that was actually on JRE. I don't know if you saw this. He was interviewing a female MMA fighter, and her boyfriend was an MMA fighter, and he lost the fight. And
Hmm.
she admitted on air that she lost her attraction to him because he lost the fight. And she broke up with him and she said specifically because he lost the fight to another guy. And like, imagine, like, do guys think like that? No. I mean, of course I can't speak for every man on planet Earth, but I imagine if a woman lost a physical confrontation, just like not like starting a fight, just she's in her sport, whatever it might be, she loses. Does the guy then think like, I'm not that attracted to her anymore? You know, but just the way that she described it, it was like instantaneous. Like the moment he like lost like really badly, that she lost attraction. Okay, so that was the non-personal example. I'll give you a personal example. I was dating a lady, and
Mm-hmm.
I asked her a similar question. Actually, I asked her, "What do you think that you would lose attraction for a guy, just in general, if he lost a fight? Like he didn't start the fight. He wasn't like that asshole that just like walked up in a
Yeah,
bar and was just
looking
like, "Hey,
for
fuck
yeah.
you," like, and just started fighting. Like he was attacked or something like that, and you were with him, and he ended up
He
getting his
was
ass
left
kicked.
wounded.
Yeah, he got his ass kicked or whatever. And again, to her credit, she gave what at least seemed to be an honest answer, and she was like, "To be honest, yeah, I'd probably lose some attraction for him." Like
Mm.
that doesn't happen
No
for
matter
men.
what.
That doesn't
Yeah,
happen for
yeah.
men. It's
No.
and it's that burden of performance, and like what is that? Is that really all socialization? I just don't believe that. I just don't believe that.
No,
I
no.
definitely think there's a biological component to that
Because
that we're
when you
just
look at that rationally,
mm,
it's like he had no, it wasn't his fault. Like he got sucker punched or whatever it was and like jumped or, unexpectedly, got his ass kicked. Like in no way did he bring that on himself. And in no way could he have done anything to prevent that. So when you rationally break that scenario down, it's like only thing you should feel is sympathy for that guy. Like, oh man, that's an unfortunate situation that should never have occurred. I hope he's okay. Like, but then the biological switch is also turned on in their brain, and it's like, oh, he might not be able to protect me in a situation like if we're in the woods and another tribe comes and like tries to steal all our food and make our children into slaves. He won't be able to prevent that from happening. Therefore, um, I need to find someone else, or I've lost a little bit of attraction for that particular person.
right.
I mean, that's not what they think in their head about
Of
this
course, yeah, of
tribe, but
course.
that's kind of where it comes from, I feel like.
Yeah. And I don't know if it plays out that way, but like no matter what, something has to happen because I just I don't think I've heard of a single instance like across the entire. I mean, in this case, I am generalizing. I just don't think across the entire male population that any man on planet Earth would give a shit if his girlfriend lost a fight in UFC or was attacked at a bar or
Yeah.
whatever it might be and she lost. Like the guy was just going to be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I actually lost attraction to this person." That just doesn't happen. And it's we can't ignore that stuff. It
Yeah.
matters. Like it's part of the difference between masculine and feminine and the inherent
and
differences
that's
that we have.
and that's why fighting like UFC, boxing, even wrestling, WWE, fake whatever.
Sure, yeah.
That's why those things are wildly popular, is because it triggers some biological emotion or feeling inside of you, switches something on where it's like two people go in, there's got to be one winner. Like they both can't
Right,
win
right, yeah.
this thing. And it's like, it's just your body against their body. There's nothing else. It's as primal as it gets. And that's why it's like, you look at the crowd. I mean, they just had the crowd back at UFC,
Yeah,
like a
so
full crowd in
mm,
Florida. And people like, this obviously happened, before COVID when it was full crowds, but you cut to a guy in the crowd and he's just like, he's not even with you anymore.
mm-hmm,
He's screaming, he's flailing around. All his guys are
mm-hmm.
doing, obviously alcohol increases that
Yeah,
effect,
yeah.
but like you're just so wrapped up that you want to start like
Mm-hmm,
fighting and like
mm-hmm,
doing all this stuff. That's why like the Jake Paul, the celebrity fights are so successful, because people just want to see people get knocked out. Like it just is what it is.
mm-hmm.
Like they want to see violence, and like even the acting out of violence in the WWE's case is wildly successful, because you have a storyline, you have a drama, you have all these characters and what could happen, and then you have finally the physical violence, the act of it all. And it's like people know it's not, these people don't really hate each other and it's all an act in a way, but
Mm-hmm.
they just like can't get enough, grown men to kids. Like
Even in
it's
sports though,
something about
right?
violence.
It's
Oh
not even
yeah,
it's not even just
sports, any
violence. Like the
sport.
violence is definitely the pinnacle, right, of what you were talking about. Even in sports, like let's say you get a guy gets a great dunk. What does he do? He
Yeah.
flexes. He's just like,
Yes.
oh, he just like
And the
that
crowd is
feeling
like,
comes out of him. It's not like he dunks and he's
oh,
just like, all right. Anyway, guys, I'm just gonna head on
Yeah, yeah.
back.
Sorry about
It's
that. You okay?
yeah,
Everybody okay?
exactly. It's that
Yeah,
part of your
I
brain
get
just
so
leaves.
fired up when I
Yeah,
see somebody just jam over
yeah,
somebody. I'm like,
exactly.
yes! Like I want to jam on somebody so bad after
Yeah,
that. Like
yeah,
just two hands just slam on somebody. And
exactly.
it's just I don't know what it is. It gets me fired up. And like I saw this clip the other day. I thought it was a fake video
Uh,
because it was a hockey game, NHL. Like I think it was like the Rangers. Oh God, who are they playing? It doesn't matter. It was pro NHL hockey. First period's about the puck drop is about to go to start the game. Right, soon as the ref drops the puck, I'm talking everybody on both sides throw their gloves down and just square up and just start. I was like, this is like a fake video. No,
that's nuts.
the entire team fought each other, and it was like everybody's like screaming like on the cages and it's like that got broken up because they let them in hockey, they let them fight until someone falls, and then they're like, all right, break it up, and then they're both like they slap hands, and then they go sit in the box for however many minutes, the penalty box. Literally the entire first period, it was just moments of guys just like ready for a puck drop, and then they just square up again. I was like, this is the greatest first period ever.
Oh
I'm so
man.
mad that I didn't send you that to play like a little clip of it, because
Yeah.
it's like it takes you by surprise because you just don't see that in
Right.
hockey. I feel like as much as you used to, like in the
Yeah.
80s, where dudes are just there's just a dude on the team who is strictly there to fight
The
people.
enforcer. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And like you could just people were just fired up, the announcers were fired up, the players on the bench or whatever, they had their sticks and they're slamming it like, yeah, and the coach is just like, fight him again. Like it's like, we're not going to play hockey tonight, we're just simply going to fight people. And that's why, and that's a big aspect of hockey. And like when you try to take that away, that's why so many people get mad. And it comes back to the like the participation award in sports, and that's
Right.
what
Yeah.
has made a lot of people soft in sports. Like you just don't see like the fire and desire to compete against
Hmm.
another guy or
Yep.
another team like you did with Kobe Bryant, or you did with
Yep.
Michael Jordan,
Totally.
or I don't know. I can't
Ron
think of a
Artest.
guy who's, yeah. I mean, yeah, he's the dude. Literally, will fight everybody in
Yeah.
the arena,
Yeah.
and that's
Allen Iverson
I don't
stepping
know.
over Ty Lue
Yeah,
in
Allen Iverson.
disrespect and then
Yeah,
nailing the
and
shot.
then yeah, and just saying like, bring it. Like I want you to be the best. I don't want this to be easy because I'm not going to be easy on
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And like if you're easy on me, I'm going to talk like you just don't have those guys that like talk trash to another player like the whole game, like Gary Payton
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
or Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Kobe would do it.
Hmm.
All these guys would just be like, I mean, it's another pro. Like you want that back and forth. Um, you just don't see it anymore. Like especially you just see guys like hugging each other after a game and like on different teams and like, oh, that's my boy, and like, and that's whatever, that's fine. Like you can be friends with another guy, but it just makes it stale, and it's like it's never going to be like it was, like especially in soccer too. Like I look back on older players and stuff, like Roy Keane is a perfect example. He was Manchester United captain for at least a decade, and in the 90s, early 2000s, and he was just not going to shake your hand as an opposing player. He's going to be enforcer. He's going to foul you if you fouled a teammate. He's going to hack you down. He's going to talk trash because he wants to win. Like, and that's all that matters, is he wants to compete and win. And for some reason, it just the participation trophy seems to that sort of mentality of like you played, therefore you get a trophy, and the team that won gets the same thing. What's their incentive to keep playing? You know what I mean? Like, and then the people who didn't win but got a trophy, it's like, oh, I can just do the bare minimum and get rewarded. Sweet.
Right.
And it's like, you need to tell them, like, you lost. Like, you guys suck today.
Yeah.
You lost.
Yep.
You want to get better? It's a shitty feeling. Remember this feeling. Like, you don't want to happen again. So we got to practice harder. You got to do better in this, whatever it is. If you really want this trophy, you're going to do it. But now it's like, yeah, just get out there and have fun. And like, I hate that. Because, I mean, you should have fun. Yeah. But like, we're not going to be number one if we keep having that mentality.
Oh,
Like, I hate
that's the
that.
crux of it. Yes, that's absolutely agree. If we keep having that mentality of, I mean, the I know it's considered essentially toxic at this point, but the American way is competition, is beating other
Yeah.
people, and that's what makes America great. It truly does.
Yeah.
That level of competition. Like you should be
Yeah.
having fun and all that stuff, but like if you lose, you need to recognize that you lost. You need to feel bad about it. I mean, if you care, then you'll feel bad about it, and that's okay. That's a good feeling. It should motivate you. You should experience that feeling of disgust with yourself. I remember I would get just livid, so fucking mad when I was a kid. So mad. I used to play Monopoly against myself, and I would get pissed off if the imaginary version of myself beat me. Dude, I would get. I mean, you were there for like a lot
a
of
new
it.
level.
I would
Yeah.
get so mad about stuff. You know, like clearly had a problem, but
Yeah, but it's like that was just inside of you. I mean, there's
yeah,
no
just this
like it's not
rage.
a thought. It's just like this is just me being a guy, like trying to express myself
Yeah, doing piss poor
in
job of it,
competition.
but yeah, absolutely, dude, absolutely piss poor. But
But I mean, you look at like the most successful people, and the number one thing they always say is like,
participation
in order,
trophies.
no, yeah, well, in order for me to get to this point, like I failed so many times,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
like I lost so many times, or like I got beat by this guy, or my company crashed and burned, and everybody told me that I sucked. But like the point is to continue to pursue whatever you're trying to accomplish, and learn from, like, that's the number one thing, is just learning from those mistakes and those failures, and not repeating, and just kind of slowly improving on those problems that you encounter. But yeah, like Michael Jordan, like he didn't make his high school basketball team like when he was a freshman or sophomore, and that's kind of what kick-started it, and then he just kept losing in the finals or in the playoffs to the Pistons or whatever it was, and you just don't give up, and you come up with different ways to attack that problem until you beat it. But there's no
Yep.
incentive to do that anymore, and that's,
No,
yeah, I can't name a player right now that's like, I'm gonna like
Russell
give it
Westbrook.
100%.
That's
Russell
the
West,
only.
yes,
I think that's
yes,
the only player though.
yes, yeah, and he's definitely. I mean, now, yeah, he's a veteran player, obviously, and yeah, I don't know a lot about his background and stuff, but
I don't either.
100%, yeah, he is that guy that will trash talk and leave it all on the floor.
Yeah, not talk to you, not shake your hand if you slighted him,
Yeah,
like Kevin Durant, right? Like,
yeah,
still holds a grudge against him. You know, it's just
and that makes him play better against him.
totally. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Just a whirlwind of energy and great player. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
even
remarkable.
Michael Jordan would make up things about people in his
Right.
own mind to get
Yeah.
an advantage, or to
Yeah.
have something like to motivate him. Like, just made up a story about a guy like talking trash to him, to the
Yep.
media.
Yep.
It's like, whew, and
Yeah,
that's another level.
it is.
But yeah, I don't
That's
know. I just
toxic.
yeah, Russell Westbrook, and
I would say maybe DeMarcus Cousins.
yeah, yeah, players that are usually like hated by other players.
Basically, yep. That's
Chris Paul to
great
an
way to.
extent.
Yep. Yeah.
So
But beyond that, I mean, it's really difficult to try to pick out different players.
I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo's is like that.
Oh
That's
yeah.
why he's so successful, is because he just relentless
Tom Brady,
work ethic. And Tom Brady,
for
yeah,
sure. Psycho Tom, when he goes like screaming at his teammates,
yeah,
or when he blew up on Tyrion Matthew.
Lannister.
Yeah, Lannister. When he walked up to him, he was like talking a bunch of trash
Oh
in his
yeah,
face and all that at the
yeah.
Super Bowl or whatever it
He's
was.
like, I'm not gonna back down.
Yeah, yeah. So, and what you notice is like they're like the greatest players too.
Exactly. Yeah,
They're the
there's a
best.
correlation.
Yeah,
There is a direct correlation between greatness and success with being ultra competitive with not only yourself but with whatever you're facing. You got to
yeah,
be cutthroat sometimes.
yeah. You do. Just being able to channel it whenever you need to. Being kind and compassionate like 95% of the time, but in those times that there's only one winner and you want to win, you got to let it out. You got to let
Hmm.
that energy inside it. I mean, even when we were talking about like the dunking and the UFC, like at least I can feel. I imagine you probably felt it too. Like that energy started building inside of you. You know,
Yeah, a physical feeling.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
it's not something I want to let go of. It's like a drug. I mean,
I know.
you feel pretty
You just
incredible.
imagine yourself in that position, just
Yeah,
like
exactly.
just jamming on somebody. I mean, what a
Yeah.
feeling
Or
that must
even
be.
or even if you get jammed on, you know how you would respond. You would have like this resentment. You would have this like it wouldn't be like it wouldn't be like you
Yeah,
like
I
just
quit.
crumple up and die. It's like you would
Yeah,
get so mad like at the world, at that person, at yourself. Hopefully you internalize that and you're like, I fucked up. And that's the healthiest way to say like, I fucked up and I need to be better. Like, I mean, great example of this are like in basketball for sure, like where you have situations where somebody gets dunked on, then the guy that got dunked on is like, give me the ball, like, and then he
right,
goes
right.
right down and just like nails a
I mean, that's
three or
Kobe,
something like that. Yeah,
100%.
exactly. Exactly. Like that,
Yeah.
that, that kind of mentality. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you don't see it, and it's like even with like when you watch the World Cup final or the Champions League final, which is coming up. Um, Obviously, the losing team gets a second place medal. But when you see them like they're not like, yeah, got a medal. Like,
We
look
did
at
it.
this. Like, second place. Like, some players just like throw it, like,
Yeah.
I don't want that shit. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, why are we getting, and like, I mean, I get why they do it because it's like your second place in the World Cup. I mean, that's a big deal. But
That is a big
like,
deal. Yeah.
but when it comes down to it, like you're like, well, we wanted to actually win. Like we don't care about a little medal. Like we
Right.
didn't come here for that. And in retrospect, like Croatia was the second place of the last World Cup. And then when they got home to Croatia, it's like they're sad and they're upset, but like there's literally a million people in the capital like waiting to welcome them home, and they're like,
Right.
wow, we actually did something pretty incredible
Yeah.
based on how small the country is, whatever it is. But anyway, I'm going on soccer again.
That's okay. I was actually going to bring up that Juventus is being not blackmailed, but like they're
Threatened.
threatened to like be kicked out of their league or something like that if
Yep.
they don't leave the European Super League or the
Su-
Super League or whatever it is.
yeah. Yeah, I think the Serie A it's the top league in Italy, and they're threatening to relegate them to the lower league if they, which they have been relegated to a lower league before in pretty recent memory for match fixing, bribing refs, and
Are you serious?
oh
Oh
yeah,
man.
oh yeah, it was rampant in Italy for a while because the mafia got involved, and it's like paying refs and fixing matches, and
Right.
when they found that out, they're like, Juventus, you are relegated. So they've been like, and Juventus has won like the Serie A in Italy for the past, like, I don't know, 10 years. So they've always been at the top.
It's fake news.
This year they're not going to win. But yeah, I think it's like if they don't verbally or sign some sort of thing saying that they're officially out of talks and like never going to enter it again, then it's like, yeah, we're going to kick you out. But I don't know how all that's going to work out
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have an all English Champions League final at the end of the month. It's been decided.
Which is what? Who's playing?
Chelsea, Manchester City.
Okay. Two blue teams.
Yep. One light.
That's
one
what I
dark.
know.
It's like Duke UNC colors,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, that's true.
And then Christian Pulisic is on Chelsea. He's the first ever American to play in a Champions League final.
Wow. With a last name like Pulisic. That's real American.
Well, we welcome all backgrounds here.
Yeah. Couldn't have gotten Roger Stone or Bill
Mark
Phillips.
Davidson.
Yeah, exactly.
John Johnson.
Bill Withers. Oh man.
One day.
Yeah, one day. Well, before we end, who do you think is going to win? When's the match?
I think it's the 29th, last Saturday of the month.
Okay.
And I don't think they actually know where it's going to be played because it's supposed to be in Istanbul. But I don't know, based on their COVID stuff, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it.
Right, okay.
Because obviously you want some fans there if you can.